Днес се намираме в Брюксел, в Европейския парламент. И ще направим едно ексклузивно ново включване с моя скъп колега Милан Мазурек от партията Република. Това включване ще бъде на английски, за да може да проследим всичко, което се случва тук с международните ни колеги, евродепутати от Европа на суверенните нации. So today we're going to do a special video, a podcast on the topic of EU funds and what's happening here in Brussels. And I'm here with my dear colleague Milan Mazurek from the party Repублika from Slovakia. And now we will dive into the topic, what is happening with the EU funds? How does the media secure favorable coverage of EU topics? Milan.
Thank you very much for this really kind and nice introduction, and also thank you very much for this invitation. And I'm really eager to start about this debate because the scandal which we have on the table is really important for all the citizens in the European Union, for all the people who are going to work, who pay their tax money, and they should know exactly what the European Union is going or is doing with their money.
Exactly, because these are taxpayers' money, they're coming here, and we're not speaking about peanuts, we're speaking about 130 million.
Yes.
And this is something that was uncovered by an Italian media called Il Fatto Quotidiano, and it's about how much, I think, 130 million.
Yes, 130 millions, and almost nobody is knowing about it, almost nobody is talking about it. We are talking about, let's be honest, a corruption scheme when the European Commission, in cooperation with the European Parliament, is giving taxpayers' money to the concrete media and influencers to provide or to change the media narratives towards their agenda, towards their political views, towards their goals. They wanted to influence the people before the last year's European elections because, of course, they wanted to succeed in that elections, and this is, from my perspective, a corruption scheme.
Yes, because here we see everywhere very favorable coverage. We see democracy in action before the European Parliament, but what kind of democracy is it when you pay for the articles that are going to be obviously in your favor? Because this money was used in a procedure that's completely not transparent. It doesn't adhere to the rules that every one of us has to follow here. There is public tender, we know very well. There is transparency, criteria that has to be filled when you have a provider. We also have these procedures as MEPs when we want to hire someone. Obviously, it's taxpayers' money, so it has to be transparent.
Yes, so tell the people exactly what happened. European Commission, as I said with the European Parliament, they gave money to the one business unit or one firm in France. It was private company in France, and they decided which one media or which influencer, which celebrity on the internet will be supported with those kind of money. And we don't know the exact names, we don't know the concrete lists of all the beneficiaries from that money. And the European Commission, even when there are voices that wants for the European Commission to disclose all of that list, they don't want to show us which kind or which concrete media outlets, media company they supported with the European taxpayers' money. Why do you think they don't want to disclose it?
Exactly. If we find out who received it, maybe we will look at the articles, because is this journalism? Or is this something that's being paid for to be written in a certain way? Because, as you said, this French company called Havas Media company, it's an advertising agency that has very strong connections. It has links to the major media like BBC, New York Times, all this media, and the one in our 27 countries. And it serves as a link, as an intermediary. So it gets the 132 million and then it distributes it. But we don't know who received them and what exactly did they write. And there were attempts at the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, at the European Parliament President Roberta Metsola to give this information. But they found some loophole in the European text, in the textbook, that says we are not obliged to give you this information.
I will be honest. I will tell you my opinion. If they would, if the beneficiaries from that money who received all that funds would be represented equally between the conservative media, between the progressive liberal media, they would not have any kind of problem to publish it. But because they gave money only to the liberal media, only to the influencers with concrete audiences, follower base, which are people with these pro-liberal, pro-European and pro-progressive values, then we know very well that anybody can point at it and say this is a corruption scandal, because you are using the taxpayers' money into influencing the results of the elections. This is something what is unimaginable in the real democracy, which you are always talking about, because you should not just take the money from the people who need to go to work, who need to pay the taxes, and pay a propaganda media for influencing the results, because you want to hold your position as a politician, you want to maintain your power. Tell me, please, is this a corruption, or am I crazy somehow? Because I see it as a pure corruption scheme.
It really goes, as you very correctly point out, into propaganda. And it looks to me as if the whole European establishment is in crisis mode, because they need this. They need to push their image very strongly, because now we have Europe of sovereign nations, we have the patriots, we have groups that are pointing out to deficiencies, that are pointing out to legitimacy that is not there. So this is something that they actually very badly need. That's why they had to go to such measures. And we know the European Commission has directorate generals. One directorate general is called communication. So this communication directorate general also, it receives huge sums. It received also 140 million in last year. And what did they use it for? For things like House of Europe, presenting how great the European Union is, for millions for social media, and it goes always in the same direction like this scandal.
Yes, you brought a very compelling point into this debate, because as we know openly, we told it, this is a European Union funded propaganda towards the influencing the elections. And when we are talking why the European Union needs to do something like that, we are facing the cruel reality for them that their policies are falling apart. Almost nobody is going to support them anymore, and it's not depends if we are talking about the migration policy of the European Union or the banning the cars with combustion engines, or any other agenda which the European Union is currently doing, but they need to do this kind of propaganda because it's the only way how they can maintain their power. And this is a way how all the totalitarian regimes, which they are pointing all the time over to them, like corruption regimes, which they are misusing the media against the opposition, but they are doing the same, but they are just doing it a little bit softly and more hidden from the public eyes. But in the reality, it is the same structure, it is the same approach, and we should talk about it openly, because it's influencing the decisions of the people in even our countries.
Exactly. And what is happening also outside of the European Union? We saw what's going on with USAID, what kind of projects were hiddenly sponsored in America. And now we actually see that this kind of mechanism was also present in the European Union. Because can we trust that a media that is dependent on this money will be critical, will provide information? And we see a lot of similarities between what happened with USAID, and it's completely stopped in America, stopped for liberal propaganda, but in the EU it's still going on. And I think it's very important that as representatives here of our countries, of our voters, we can expose this and we can provide real information.
We see from all the directions, especially from those progressive liberal media, how they are, let's say, screaming, yelling at Elon Musk, because he is doing what you just said. He is cancelling all those unnecessary funds, unnecessary budgetary spendings, because we just think, and I think the same, that the media should not be financed by the government of the country, because then we are not talking about any kind of independent journalism or free speech media, we are talking about the state-funded propaganda. And from my personal experience, before the elections, I saw a lot of influencers from Slovakia coming here to the Brussels, to this square, and filming a lot of videos and talking about the importance of the European elections. And all of that influencers were paid by the European Commission to do that. And what is very interesting for all the people, all of them were from those progressive liberal parts of these communities of the society or the political spectrum. And who do you think are their followers? Who are the people who are watching their videos, who are listening to their podcast? Those are the people with the same ideas or very similar ideas as them. So if they will do any kind of videos or actions or propaganda to attract people to go to the elections, then they are attracting the special kind or the concrete kind of the people, the special group of the people, and they will never vote for any conservative patriotic party. They will vote for those liberals and progressivists who are ruling the European Union. This is openly, say, corruption scheme.
And I don't know how it is in your country and with your party, but for us, we always go and speak to the people on the squares, in the cities, in the streets, and this is so important for us, this direct personal contact. And when you see how these huge amounts are used for online propaganda, because we know also our generation, a lot of things are now online, a lot of people even live online, which is not a very healthy way, but it's the reality. So we are actually doing real politics with speaking to the people, and the propaganda machine is financing this type of online propaganda.
Yes, we are trying to do the same all the time, but also we don't have to forget about this online world, which mostly young people are living in. And as somebody who is trying to manipulate the people towards some kind of opinion, what the European Commission right now is doing openly, we see it, we are talking about it, we have proofs, but they don't want to disclose it openly because it would seem even worse for them. They want to manipulate the minds and the souls of young people, because they know very well that people with all life experiences, people who survived so many years in a lot of situations, maybe people who survived 2 different regimes, like people in our countries, they have so many experiences that they are a little bit of resistant to the propaganda. But the young people who were born only in the one regime and all the time they were talking to them that we are for democracy, we are for your freedom to work wherever you want, for your freedom to travel. And now those same media are talking to them, you need to go to vote, you need to vote for this kind of parties. And we know very well that it's paid, they are paid for that. Then it's a very dangerous situation, because the European Union is shifting from any kind of democracy project into the authoritarian, totalitarian projects, which they are still talking about and showing for us as some kind of threat which we need to protect Europe's citizens from.
And the threat is right here where there is no transparency, where there are huge sums, 130 million used without transparency to one media that subsidized different outlets. Nobody knows what they wrote. Then we have 140 million for 1 year from Directorate General Communication. So I think it's a very good idea to look into this and then further on inform our citizens on what's going on here.
I think this is something what we can promise to all of our voters, but to all of the citizens of the European Union. They don't need to be our voters, because everyone with open mind and with some kind of willing for truth and willing for justice have to know that to disclose the list of the media which receive the money from the European Commission to popularize the elections, it's something what is going in the interest of everybody who likes the real democracy. And that European Commission don't want to disclose that list, it's very sad. So what I was talking about. We need to promise, and we can promise, that we, as a member of European Parliament, will do anything to find out what was on that list, to find out the concrete media companies which received the money, and we will push forward any kind of pressure against or towards the European Commission to publish that list, because it's their duty to act responsibly and to be transparent and to say to the people, yes, this is the way how we are using your money, because they are not speaking, they are not using their own money, they are using the money of the citizens of the member states of the European Union.
I could not agree more. And then we can really fill in this word democracy. What does democracy mean? It means the power to the people. So we could fill this with real meaning, and not our democracy as in the democracy of this kind of EU. It's the real democracy, the power to the people. So we will be following this very closely, and stay with us for our future comments on this topic.